Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive into learning English. This time we're going to be focusing on everyday conversations, specifically how you can use simple phrases to sound like a natural English speaker. And for today's deep dive, we have a dialogue between two friends, Alex and Ella, who are trying to decide where to eat dinner.
Oh, I love it. It's amazing how much you can learn from just listening to a short conversation. You pick up new words, you pick up expressions, and you even get to hear how people navigate a real conversation in English.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what?
hmm
I think it would be fun before we break down this dialogue if we actually acted out ourselves. What do you think?
Oh, I love that idea. Let's do it.
Okay, so I'll be Ella and you can be Alex. Ready?
Oz, let's go.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Ella.
Wow, that meeting was so long, I'm really famished.
Me too. Let's get some food.
How about that new Italian restaurant? I heard their pasta's delectable.
I'm trying to eat less bread and pasta these days.
Okay, well then we could go to the steakhouse.
Ooh, that's quite pricey. Let's find something a little cheaper.
Hmm, what about the Korean barbecue place? They have a special discount today.
Perfect. That sounds appetizing and budget-friendly.
Okay, I love playing Ella. Even in that short conversation, I spotted some great words and phrases. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to unpack there. Maybe we can start by talking about some of the vocabulary.
Yeah, let's do it. So the word that really stood out to me was famished. It's not a word you hear every day. And then there was delectable and appetizing. Those are some fancy words.
Right. Those words definitely add some flavor to the conversation, so let's break them down so you can start using them too. Famished just means very hungry.
So basically, Ella was really hungry after that long meeting.
Exactly.
Got it.
How about delectable? It basically means delicious, but it sounds a bit more sophisticated.
Oh, I see. So if you want to impress someone, you can use delectable instead of just saying delicious.
Exactly.
I like it.
And then appetizing. It means something looks and smells so good that you want to eat it.
Yeah. It's not just about the taste, but the whole experience.
hmm
How the food looks, how it smells, how it makes you feel.
That's it. Now, we also heard the words pricey and budget-friendly. These are very useful words when you're talking about money, especially when you're choosing a restaurant. Pricey simply means expensive.
Yeah, and budget-friendly means affordable or it won't break the bank.
Exactly. So these are all great words that you can use in everyday conversations. Now let's move on to some of the phrases that Alex and Ella use to navigate their dinner decision. What are some of the phrases that stood out to you?
Well, I noticed that Ella used the phrase, how about, to suggest the Italian restaurant.
That's a great observation.
Mm.
How about is such a fantastic way to propose an idea or make a suggestion. And you can use this in all sorts of situations, not just when you're talking about food.
So I could say, how about we watch a movie tonight? Or how about we go for a walk in the park?
Perfect, you got it. Now, when Alex wanted to politely reject Ella's first suggestion, he said, I'm trying to eat less bread and pasta these days.
Right. It's a much nicer way of saying no than just saying, I don't want to eat Italian food.
Exactly. It's a great example of how to express a preference without being direct or confrontational. What else did you notice?
Well, I noticed after Alex rejected the Italian restaurant, Ella came up with another option. And she used the phrase, then we could.
Excellent point. Then we could is a fantastic way to smoothly transition to a new suggestion, especially after someone has rejected your initial idea. It keeps the conversation flowing and shows that you're listening and responding to the other person.
Yeah, so in this case, she said, then we could go to the steakhouse. It's like she's saying, okay, if you don't like that idea, what about this one?
Precisely. Now, we also heard Alex say, that's quite pricey. This is a more polite way of saying that something is too expensive. He could have said that's too expensive. But by using quite, it just softens the tone a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a little more subtle. And then he followed that up with, let's find something cheaper, which is a very clear way of stating his preference.
Exactly. He's being direct, but still polite. Now, do you remember the phrase Ella used when she suggested the Korean barbecue place?
She said, what about?
Right. You got it? What about is another fantastic way to introduce an option, just like how about. Both of these phrases are very common and very useful in everyday conversations.
And I love how she gave a reason for her suggestion. She said, they have a discount today. It makes it even more appealing.
Absolutely. Giving a reason for your suggestion can definitely make it more persuasive. And finally, Alex agreed with Ella's suggestion by saying, "Perfect, that sounds appetizing and budget-friendly." And that nicely wraps up their negotiation.
Yeah, they found a solution that works for both of them.
Exactly. And they did it using simple everyday phrases that you can start using right away.
It's amazing how much we can learn from just one short conversation.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more we can explore. But before we move on, maybe we should quickly review those key vocabulary words and phrases that we've talked about, just to make sure that they stick.
Yeah, good idea. So we learned that famished means very hungry, delectable means delicious,
Hmm.
and appetizing means that something looks and smells good enough to eat.
Right. And don't forget, pricey means expensive, and budget-friendly means affordable. These are all great words to use when you're talking about food or making any other kind of purchase. Now, how about those useful phrases that we discussed?
Well, we learned how about and what about for making suggestions.
Yes. And I'm trying to express a preference without directly saying no, and then we could to offer an alternative suggestion. And finally, perfect that sounds, to show agreement.
Whoa, that's a lot of useful phrases in just one short dialogue. I'm already thinking about how I can use these in my own conversations.
That's fantastic. The key is to practice, practice, practice. The more you use these phrases, the more natural they'll become. Now, in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how these same phrases can be used in different situations, like deciding what to do on the weekend or even navigating a work meeting. It's going to be fun.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Welcome back to our deep dive into everyday English conversations.
Ooh, I'm excited to keep exploring these useful phrases.
Me too. And, as we were talking about those phrases, I was thinking about just how versatile they are. You can really use them in so many different situations. It's not just about deciding where to eat.
Right, they're like building blocks for any conversation.
Exactly. So let's try applying them to a different scenario.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember how you mentioned work meetings? So imagine you're in a meeting and your team is brainstorming ideas for a new marketing campaign.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that.
Someone might say, "How about we focus on social media advertising?" Or, "What about partnering with a popular influencer?"
Right, and then if someone has a different idea, they could use the phrase, I'm trying to politely express their preference. Like they might say, I'm trying to explore more creative options beyond traditional advertising.
Exactly. It allows them to kind of voice their opinion without dismissing the previous suggestions. And then someone could offer an alternative using "then we could." They might say, "Then we could brainstorm some guerrilla marketing tactics that will generate buzz."
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, it keeps the conversation positive and productive. And then if everyone loves an idea, they can show their agreement with perfect. That sounds like they'll say perfect. That sounds like a brilliant strategy.
You got it. So you see how these simple phrases can be used in a professional setting just as effectively as in a casual conversation about dinner?
Mm. It's amazing how they can adapt to different contexts. It's like
Mm.
having a secret code for smooth communication.
That's a great way to put it. And as you become more comfortable using these phrases, you'll find yourself using them effortlessly in all sorts of situations.
Whether they become second nature.
Precisely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about those descriptive words we discussed earlier. Famished, delectable, and appetizing. They really add a lot of color to a conversation.
Yeah, they do. They're like spices that just make your language more flavorful.
Ooh, I love that analogy. And using descriptive language is a fantastic way to sound more fluent and confident in English. It shows that you have a wider range of vocabulary and that you're not afraid to use it.
So how can we encourage our listeners to use more descriptive language in their conversations?
Well, one tip is to pay attention to how native English speakers express themselves. Listen to podcasts, watch movies, read books, and take note of the interesting words and phrases that you encounter.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's like immersing yourself in the language and absorbing those nuances.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try using those new words and phrases in your own conversations, even if it feels a little awkward at first.
Right. It's all part of the learning process.
Absolutely. The more you practice, the more natural it will become.
Now, I'm curious, are there any other scenarios where these phrases and descriptive words would be especially useful?
That's a great question. Let's think about it.
Okay, so imagine you're making plans with a friend for the weekend.
Perfect. How could you use the phrases we learned in that situation?
Well, it could say, how about we go hiking on Saturday? Or what about checking out that new art exhibit everyone's talking about?
And if your friend isn't keen on those ideas, they could say, I'm trying to relax and recharge this weekend.
Right. And then I could offer an alternative with, then we could. I might say, then we could just have a cozy movie night at my place.
You're getting the hang of it. It's all about using these phrases to have a natural back and forth conversation, just like Alex and Ella did when they were deciding on dinner.
It's like a dance of language.
Yeah,
And speaking of dances, wouldn't these phrases also be helpful when you're planning a party or a social gathering?
absolutely. You could use how about to suggest themes or decorations or activities. What about would be perfect for discussing food and drinks.
And I'm trying to could be used to politely express any preferences or dietary restrictions.
Exactly. You're really seeing how these phrases can be applied to so many different aspects of life.
This is so empowering. It feels like we're unlocking a whole new level of communication.
That's what I love about language learning. It just opens up new possibilities for connection and expression.
Now, I can't wait to hear what other insights you have in store for us as we continue our deep dive.
Well, hold on tight because in the next part, we're going to explore some even more subtle aspects of conversation, like how to use body language and tone of voice to enhance your communication.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating. I'm ready to take my English skills to the next level. Welcome back to our deep dive into everyday English conversations. I'm so excited to see what we're going to uncover in this final part.
Me too. We've covered so much already from, useful vocabulary and key phrases to even how to adapt our language for different situations.
Right. And, at the end of the last part, you mentioned something really intriguing. You were talking about body language and tone of voice. And I'm really curious, how did those things play a part in learning English?
Well, they play a much bigger role than you might think.
Mhm.
Because communication isn't just about the words that we say right. It's also about how we say them and the nonverbal cues that we send along the way.
So even if I use like perfect grammar and vocabulary, my body language and tone could be sending a totally different message.
Exactly. Think about it. If you say, I'm fine, but you sound annoyed and you're avoiding eye contact, people are going to know that you're not actually fine.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key nonverbal cues that we should be aware of when we're speaking English?
Well, let's start with eye contact. In many cultures, including, the ones where English is widely spoken, making eye contact is a sign of respect and engagement. It shows that you're listening and that you're interested in what the other person is saying.
So looking someone in the eye when they're speaking is generally a good thing.
Yes. But of course, you don't want to stare intensely at someone because that can be a little uncomfortable. The key is to make natural eye contact throughout the conversation. Glancing away occasionally, but always coming back to connect with the other person's gaze.
Okay, I got it. What about facial expressions? I feel like those are really hard to read sometimes, even in my own language.
They can be very subtle, but they're also incredibly powerful. Like a genuine smile, for example, can work wonders in any conversation.
So even if I make a mistake grammatically or I'm struggling to find the right word, a smile can help smooth things over.
Absolutely. A smile shows that you're approachable and friendly and eager to communicate. It puts people at ease and it makes them more receptive to what you have to say.
That's really encouraging. It's like a universal language of kindness.
Exactly. And let's not forget about some simple gestures like nodding your head or shaking your head.
Right. I do those all the time. A nod means yes, or I understand, and a shake means no, or I disagree.
Exactly. So these are great ways to show agreement or disagreement without having to interrupt the flow of the conversation. They help keep things moving smoothly.
It's fascinating how much we can communicate without even saying a word.
It is. And these nonverbal cues are especially important when there are language barriers. Even if someone doesn't fully understand your words, they can often pick up on your intentions and emotions through your body language and your tone of voice. That's so helpful to know. So even as I'm learning English, I can still have meaningful interactions with people.
Absolutely. And remember, just like spoken language, nonverbal communication can vary across cultures. So it's always a good idea to be mindful of those differences and to observe how people communicate in different settings.
Right, we don't want to accidentally send the wrong message.
Exactly. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into everyday English conversations, I want to leave you with one final thought. Learning a new language is an incredible journey. It's about more than just memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary words.
So what else is it about?
It's about connecting with people, expressing yourself, and experiencing the world in new and exciting ways.
That's beautiful. I think this deep dive has really captured that spirit. We've explored these practical phrases. We've uncovered the power of nonverbal communication. And most importantly, we've learned that it's okay to make mistakes and just have fun along the way.
Exactly. Remember, every conversation is a learning opportunity. And the more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become. Well, this has been such an inspiring and informative deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
It's been my pleasure. And to all of our listeners out there, keep up the amazing work on your English journey as we're all cheering you on.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive and you want more engaging English learning content, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic. Until then, happy learning.
Thanks for joining the conversation here at Kaz English. We hope you found it fun and informative. Don't forget to check out kazapp.uk. That's kazapp.uk for more tips, resources, and interactive practice. Keep exploring, keep chatting, and we'll catch up with you again soon.